and it's September 13th. I can't believe it's September already. But I have a couple, I'm filling in for Sherry, obviously. I'm not Sherry Leisure. If you are not new to this team, you probably were aware that Sherry does not have blue hair. So Melissa is filling in. So I have just a couple of quick announcements before we get started, and I'm going to have Brandy introduce our guest speaker tonight.
It's getting stuck.
I'm not sure who's talking, but hang on one second. I'm going to try to manage this so that I can, if you come on, you pop it on, please mute yourself so that we can hear the speakers. And then if you have a question or anything at the end, you can unmute yourselves. So first announcement is next week, you guys, we have an amazing, another guest, actually two guests on our Wine Warriors call. It's actually a presentation that's going to be in place of our Wine Warriors Zoom call. It's not going to be on Zoom like our normal calls. And we are lucky to have John and Nadia Melton next week on the 20th at 8 p.m., which will be in place of this call. However, there is a thread in our Wine Warriors group that you need to click on the link in that thread, and you need to register because that presentation is going to take place on a separate site. So you absolutely have to register there and go to that site the day of the meeting at 8 o'clock next Wednesday on the 20th. So make sure if you didn't see that thread in our group, it's hashtagged ATM strategy. Let me check. I know that the website is called enterthemeeting.com. So I'm not sure if you are familiar with that, but it is hashtagged, Joe posted, and it's hashtagged ATM strategy. So if you didn't see that thread, do a search in the group and you'll be able to find it. Oh, I didn't know that, Kelly. I'm not sure about, I usually use my laptop, so I'm not sure if it's supported. Apparently it might not be. And then no problem. The second announcement that I have is some of us, there is a handful of us that are in the Ray Higdon's Rank Makers program. And I just want to say that if you're not a part of it, or you have not had an upline share some of the strategies with you that we've been learning, I want to say I've been in the group maybe a couple of months now. I'm well into my second month. And what it is the new breed of marketing strategies that he's created. He's actually really active in the group with us one-on-one. He does a Ray Daily, gives us an action step for the day. And it's a group that's not always open. He opens it from the waiting list on a like, I want to say he does it like once a month, maybe once every 3 weeks. He opens it for a short period of time. And right now it is open. Is it once a month? Okay, Nicole. That's pretty close. And then, so what it is it's a paid training. You can choose a couple of options. I am doing a pay per month version. I decided, since I didn't know what to expect, that is what I would do. And I figured it's $20 a month. I can go in, check it out, see what I think of it. And I am happy to say it's probably one of the best $20 I have ever spent. Yes, you can upgrade as well. Once you get in and you think you want to do the lifetime, you can upgrade at whatever the current cost is. But it is by far worth every single penny, and it's the best $20 a month I've ever spent on anything. So I encourage everyone, if you're not on that waiting list or you're not in that group, get in there. It's worth every single penny. I will give you the address to the training, where you get on the waiting list right now, so that if you guys want to write it down, it is. You're going to go to HTTP, you're going to go to go.topearner.com. That's go.topearner.com/rank-makers. So it's go.topearner.com/rank-makers. And that will allow you to get on that waiting list and get in that group and take part in that. It's really great. Everyone that's in it is loving it. And I know that I've been able to pass down lots of strategies to my team, which is awesome. And everybody's doing really well. So that is my announcements for the day. And I want to go ahead and hand it over to Brandy, and she can introduce our special guest.
Hey guys. Well, I'm really, really excited to welcome Dr. Coyte Cooper to this Zoom. I'm so excited. I've actually had the privilege of working with him in a previous business, and he is just amazing. I've had the privilege a few times to actually hear him speak. And a little bit about him, though, guys. He is a best-selling author, coach, podcast host, and speaker. He's committed to helping people perform to their full potential so they can achieve extraordinary things. He is also the author of Make Your Mark, which is absolutely amazing. He's the host of Earn the Right to Live Your Dream podcast, and he's also a former NCAA Division All-American. Did I say that right, Coyte? He's got a PhD from Indiana University in sport marketing and was a college professor for 9 years, where he's established a line of research in the area of branding and social media marketing. He is married to his beautiful wife, Brandy, which I absolutely love. They have 2 beautiful children. His philosophy is, to add crazy value to people's lives, guys. And if you get the opportunity to hear this man speak and to learn from him, you need to jump on it because he is amazing and you add so much value. So thank you so much, Coyte, for hopping on. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. And I have to say, this is absolutely the biggest Zoom call I've ever been on. This is a really big group. So pretty neat for me to have the opportunity to work with you. And as they said, I mean, what I do now, I was a college professor and I moved away from my job at the University of North Carolina to go off and do what I'm doing now, which is to work with people and organizations to help them go out. And if they're here, to help them get to a higher level. So what I wanted to do today was just share with you some tips on how to make that happen. And so I've used Zoom enough that I know that I like to pull up PowerPoints and walk you through that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. And the way I'm going to do it is this. I'll go through this presentation. I'll try to keep track of questions. And if I do see those, maybe Brandy, if you see some that would be relevant to answer during it, go ahead and flag me. But we'll go through it. I'm going to try to keep it fairly simple. And then at the end, we'll have any questions. And we're also going to tell you about a unique training opportunity that I think will be kind of cool for you. So with that being said, I'm going to pull the slides up. And Brandy, go ahead and you give me a thumbs up if you can see it. It always works, but just to make sure that it's up there. You see it okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we call this thing, I call it mental mastery, but you could call it, you can call it performing at a higher level. You can call it living at a higher level. You can call it achieving more. You can call it whatever you want. But what I've learned is this: most people are out there in their lives and they want more. They're not happy with where they're at. And I've had a chance to work with thousands of people in course settings. I've had a chance to coach people one-on-one. And I'll tell you, when I first started doing this, I used to think what you could do is this. I thought you could go out and teach people about goal setting, teach them about, habits around those goals, and they would go out and they could achieve whatever they wanted. And what I quickly realized is this wasn't correct. That's a really, really important part of the process. But what I learned, what's a bigger part of the process than that, which that's strategy. Setting goals and action items and planning is strategy. What I learned that the bigger piece is psychology and it's mindset. And the single biggest thing every single day that's stopping people from realizing their goals, from living at a level that they absolutely love, is mindset. It's mental. And what I've learned is this: most people don't know this, but a second part to this is that what's holding most people up is they don't necessarily believe that they can achieve things. And what I want to do is I want to talk about that a little bit more. And then I just want to give you 3 simple steps. Once we get into the bulk of this presentation, 3 simple things that you can do to start changing that. And if we get it right, I've seen this happen with people. It's so cool. The people that get it right, all of a sudden you see their results in their lives drastically change. And so that's what our goal is today, is that. And that picture up front is a picture of where I live, Anacortes, Washington. It's an amazing place. If you get a chance to visit at any point, I highly recommend it. It's San Juan Islands in Washington State. So check it out. I'll have live events here as well. So if you're interested in learning more about those, you can ask me about that. But here's my big idea. I don't care if I'm talking branding. I don't care if I'm talking performance, goal setting, anything. The one thing that I say is that I believe that people are leaving it on the table. And I think this is the case with LeBron James, Oprah Winfrey, that every person on the planet can reach a higher level. The difference with Oprah Winfrey and LeBron James and those people is they know that. Every single day they're trying to break down barriers, get their lifestyle right, and get to that next level. But I think most people in a span of 6 weeks to a year could blow themselves away by what they're able to accomplish if they got the right habits and they got the right approach. And the one thing I want you to ask yourself, and you don't have to answer this now, but at some point when you leave this call or right now, do you really believe that? Do you really believe that you can go out and become a top performer, or whatever your goals are, write a book, become a speaker? Do you really believe that? And if the answer is no, one of the things I would tell you is this: I think you're wrong. And here's why I think you're wrong. I'm going to give you an example of somebody who, on the surface, this person, if you were to see him, you wouldn't think he would probably be accomplishing much. And if I didn't know him and I looked at him, I think, man, he probably has a hard time getting up every day. And he probably doesn't dress himself. Imagine he just has somebody helping him all day long. And I would be dead wrong. And you would be dead wrong if you assume that, because this guy's name is Kyle Maynard. Kyle Maynard is extraordinary. He in high school placed top 12 in the country in wrestling. He has broken weightlifting records. He has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, a mountain that people die trying to climb every single year. He's been like the first ever in an MMA fight. I mean, he's an international speaker. He's a best-selling author. It's unbelievable the things he's doing. And what I always ask audience members is this: if he can do those things, why can't you go out and become a top earner? Why can't you go out, whatever your goal is, why can't you do that? And I tell you what, there's one difference if you're not. Most of the time, this is the difference. If you're not, the difference between you and Kyle Maynard is this: he doesn't place limitations on the things that he can achieve. When he wants something, he simply decides he's going to do it, and he goes out and he does it. I mean, he was crazy blessed, right? He grew up with a parent that told him, Kyle, you can go do this. And most people don't grow up with that. They don't have that as their standard. And I think that's a critical thing. And so one thing I encourage you to do, if you never had that, the good news is you can change that. You can change what your mental approach is, and you can surround yourself with amazing people. That's what I do every day. I want to be around people that aren't telling me that I can't. And I'm pretty stubborn, so they tell me that, I'm kind of going to tell them to go away anyways, but you can surround yourself with the right people. But I want to start with that. Listen, he's not the only one. I mean, I could give you hundreds of examples of people that would just blow you away. And they're out living life at the highest level with these perceived limitations. And the things that we're going to talk about today can help you get kind of beyond that to get you to that point too. Because at the end of the day, do I want you to get more results? Heck yes, I want you to get more results. But what's more important to me is that you have an opportunity to create a life that you love, where you get up and you're charged about what you're doing, where you have an opportunity to control your emotions every single day, to control your thoughts, to build the type of beliefs that lift you up. That's what I want to do. If you do that right, results take care of themselves, I think. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So let me say this first. Before we go to the strategy of how, why not you? So if you are not living where you want to live, what are some of the reasons why? And I've done presentations all over the United States, and one of the main reasons I think that some of the things holding us up is this: it's the status quo mentality in our society. And it's all around us every single day. Society, friends, family. Most of the time, what people are doing is telling you to settle. They're telling you to tone it down. They're telling you that you can't do stuff. And this starts at a really young age. And just last year, I lived in Indiana, and I was at a park with my kids. And my daughter is 3 years old at the time, and there's this park, it's huge. And there's this climbing wall. And I watch as this little girl about her age walks up, and she goes to climb it, and her mom goes, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. She's like, no, and then tries to go up and climb up these stairs. Says, no, you can't do that. And it's like parents don't even mean to, but from the time you're young, you're told what you can't do. My daughter walked up there, and she said, Daddy, I want to climb this. I said, good, let's climb this. I mean, I'm not going to walk away and let her fall on her head, but I'm going to let her climb it. And I'm going to be there, and I'm going to let her learn that skill set. And when she got closer to the top and she said, Daddy, I can't. I said, no, you can. You're gonna. We're not letting you down at this point. You're finishing. And she finished, and she was so proud of herself. But yet it starts at that age. It's when you go to school and all of a sudden you tell them there's something you want to do and people tell you that you can't. It's all over the place. But if you're going to achieve anything, you can't allow that to stop you. You have to be aware that it's going on all the time. The number 2 thing is this, the crazy clutter of living. This is both the most extraordinary and worst creation that's ever been made. Listen, this thing is amazing. Like my grandma who's in her 80s, like she's just on Facebook, liking all my posts. She's on my email list, like getting all my messages. And I had no idea. I just went to my email list. And I'm like, who's opening these things? My grandma's like one of my number 1 fans. I'm like, wow, I didn't even know she was there. Listen, you know this, but you can create a multi-million-dollar business from your phone with the right idea. It's unbelievable what you can do. But at the same time, this same device that can help you do that will absolutely rob you of your ability to achieve great things. Meaning if you wake up and you let this thing set the tone for every part of your day, you have no shot at achieving goals. If the very first thing that you do is you wake up and you get on this phone and you scroll and you go through and all you're doing, and I'm not meaning to criticize you, don't take it the wrong way, because I've done the same thing, but if you just scroll and you spend hours every morning scrolling to see what other people are doing, and you're focused on negative all the time, you're always going to struggle. And you have to learn to use this thing and dictate it based on your own pace. And then there's a third reason that's far more important than the first 2. And this is the main one that you have to watch for, because I think you can control the first 2. You can have an awareness of that status quo and say, nah, I'm not doing that. I want my life to be something different. And you can build up from there. You can come up with a plan to say, I'm not social media wise, I'm not going to do that. But the third part is the most difficult when I'm working with people. And what it is it's our negative patterns. Because of these things, some of the things that we've established because a parent told us that we can't do something, or a boyfriend or girlfriend told us we weren't, is we develop certain thoughts and beliefs. And a lot of times, be careful here, because you say, no, I don't have those types of beliefs. But if you really go home and sit down, what you'll realize is that a lot of times when you're not taking action, it's because you don't necessarily believe that you can. And every person on the planet has it. If I'm not careful, these things sneak up on me and stop me from launching a course, because deep down we have them. And also negative emotions, being frustrated, angry. We could literally spend days just talking about this topic, but they're patterns. And the thing I want you to understand is when you have negative thoughts and beliefs, they are not you. Like if you're frustrated all the time, it's not that you're a frustrated person. It's just that you've established habits of thinking in a way that gets you those things. And so the cool thing is I don't need you to think a ton about that, because I'm going to give you very specific, simple strategies to start to change that. And I love this quote by Russell Wilson. He's been a Super Bowl MVP, and he says, why not me? Why not you? Why not us? Why not now? Why not try? And I love it because Russell Wilson, when he was in college, people told him, they're like, he can't play in the NFL. He's too short. He can't do it. He's not going to make it. And now he's doing great things. He didn't listen to them, but he had a dad that said, Russ, why not you? So that's my job, is to sit here right now with you and say, why not you? Why can't you go out and build a great business? Build an extraordinary family. That's really the way that you want to be thinking. So I just wanted to start with that. And kind of one more thing before we jump into the 3 things is understand this, that you always have the power of choice. Those 3 things that we talked about, status quo, clutter, negative thoughts, at any moment, you have the power to change those things. You have the power to take an up and drastically, radically make a change like in an instant. Now, you're going to have to establish the right habits to see the outcomes. But right now, you can say, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of holding back. And you can change that. But just to understand, here are the 3 things that you always have power over. The first one is you have the power to decide how you're going to spend your time, okay? How you're going to spend your time every single day is one of the single biggest ways that you can change your life. And I used to just say time, but it's not enough. Because I can tell you to spend 30 minutes every day reading. I can tell you to spend 30 minutes going out, setting your goals and taking action. And if you roll into that and you're just going through the motions just because you're supposed to, it's not going to get you a lot. Because the reality is you have to go into those sections. And here's what I do every day. I know the top thing in my life. I know my top goal. I know my top action item. I block out 30 minutes to an hour, and I come at it with energy and passion every single day. And I choose that. That's my choice to bring that to my work so people will feel that. So you have to understand every day you get to choose that. You might say, hey, I'm in a job that I hate. Well, we've also made decisions to put us there. And you can also make decisions to get yourself out of there with the business that you're in now. But you have to own that. You have to say, I can take 30 minutes back. I can take 60 minutes back and invest it towards my business. And I can come into that session with energy and passion to make a difference. Like, I can do that. But you have to believe that. Number two thing, that you control your response to your environment. This is absolutely critical. Every day we walk around, a lot of times, me included, everybody, and a lot of times we're frustrated and we're mad. We're like, we blame everything. A lot of times we blame other things for our emotions. And I remember when I was young, my dad used to say, Coyte, like, listen, nobody makes you mad. And I'm like, that's not true. That kid just pissed me off. And he'd say, no, Coyte, it's just not true. And it took me a long time to realize what he's talking about. But here's what we do most days. And I've studied this. 80% of our thoughts, up to 80% of our thoughts, research shows, are negative. It's incredible. 12.8 hours of a 16-hour wake period are negative for most people. And we wonder why we're not able to go out and achieve really great things. And I know what you might be thinking. You're like, oh, that's not me. I'm optimistic. I thought the same thing. And then I went home and I tracked this, right? I said, I'm gonna figure this out. I want to see, do I fit this mold? And I got up one morning, no joke, and I go into my living room. And my little guy, Carter, at the time, I don't know if he's 3 years old, he comes out and you parents know how this works. Someday they come out and they're just like, they're coming at you from the get-go. They're like little, wild little things, screaming at you and stuff. And I remember I'm mad. I'm like, son of a, like, dang kid, this and that. And I'm thinking these thoughts. And it's like, I was like, whoa, like, okay, so there's a start. And then I go walking over to my sink. And there's this smoothie cup, and there's just a little bit left in it. And my wife had left it there, and I'm thinking, oh, so selfish. Like, dang her, why would she do that? I mean, my wife is a saint. I'm not kidding you. She holds down the fort with our kids. She's amazing. And here I am complaining about a little bit of a smoothie cup? Like, really? And then I go into my car, and I go driving to work, and a light turns orange at me, and I'm mad at the orange light. I'm pissed off at the orange light because I stopped. Maybe you would keep going, but I didn't. And then I keep driving and somebody cuts me off and I'm mad about that. It didn't take me but an hour of my day to realize that I'm absolutely a part of this statistic. And I had to own that. I had to change my response. Not one of those things that I told you made me mad. Not one of them. I chose how to respond to that. What I do now and what I teach people to do is to take control of those responses, and instead of getting mad, make them productive and make them something that will allow you to close the gap on your goals. So you have to own that. And then 3 is my favorite. 3 is this. You can decide what your life is going to stand for at any moment. You can decide that you're going to have a lot more in your life, that you're going to do better, that you will not settle for average, that you'll go out and you'll pursue things all out. You can decide that at any moment. And if some of you are saying, listen, this guy's nuts, I don't believe him, I want to give you an example because I think it's really, really important. This person is J.K. Rowling. And J.K. Rowling, for those of you who don't know J.K. Rowling, she is the Harry Potter person. She wrote those books. And I tell you what most people don't know about her is that before she wrote those books, she was basically homeless in her country, living in her car with a baby coming. And she decided, there was pain there, right? A lot of times change comes from pain. And she's sitting there in her car and she said, I decided I will not have this for my baby. I will not allow this to happen. I will change this. And she went out, she started writing with a passion from an entirely different place. And I guess the rest is history because she's kind of a billionaire. She's kind of really well respected, is amazing. And the reason I tell you that is, listen, you don't have to be at rock bottom. You can be at a point where you're not satisfied and you can make a decision to go to a different place. Now, I'm not telling you decide that and it magically pops out because she busted her butt writing. But she decided in that moment that her life was going to change. And that's where all change starts. It starts from a place where you want something different. So that's our job. Now that we've talked about that, it's to say, okay, well, if you want change, what I want to do is I want to give you just 3 steps that you can take. We could talk, again, this could be a seminar for 3 days long where we could break this down. We could talk about more. But for now, we really just have like another 10 to 15 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move through this. And here's the single most important thing if you want to change your life. I am not going to sit here and tell you to develop more strategies for your business, because I believe those are important. Don't get me wrong. But what I've learned is the most impactful way to create more results, more change, is to build yourself up, to invest in yourself. And I don't think there's many crazy successful people that would tell you otherwise. And I learned this a long, long time ago, 10, 12 years ago, from John Maxwell. And most of you know John Maxwell, but I was reading his books in college, and I won't go into the story of how I got it started, but he talked about a growth plan. He said he was in one of his books, he talks about where he was early in his career as a pastor, and he was struggling. He said, I wasn't where I wanted to be. And he said he had a friend who was a mentor, said, John, do you have a growth plan? And John said, well, yeah, I guess so. And he said, well, what is it? He's like, I don't know. I sort of just kind of read sometimes. And he's like, John, you don't have a growth plan. You need a growth plan. And he basically at the time was trying to get John to invest in this program. And John and his wife basically spent like 2 months of their salary at the time to invest in this growth plan. And he said it was one of the single best investments he ever made, because from there he created a growth plan. And for those of you who don't know what a growth plan is, I'm going to give you an example of things, but it's intentional things that you do every single day to build you up. Because if you're sitting at home and you're struggling to get results and you're hesitating, right? You're not taking action, or you tend to make excuses. Often what lies under that is that same belief where it's like, I'm not sure I can do this. I'm not sure I want to deal with failure if it comes. And one of the only ways I've learned, the best ways to get over that, is to start to invest in you. How do you do that? Well, you do things like this. If you were to take one thing from this talk, if I could pass one thing to you and give you a habit that you would do for the rest of your life, it would be number one. I would tell you to read every single day. Read the right books. I tell people, not romance novels. We're talking like personal development, goals, your skill sets, things like that. Things that when you get up in the morning are gonna teach you to focus on something different. Because listen, the 80% of negative thoughts, if you want to change that, what I tell people, wake up first thing in the morning and interrupt that. Interrupt that first thing off the bat. Create space. And what I say is morning routine. You got to have a morning routine. If you get up and you'll just read for 15 to 30 minutes every single morning, you'll get up early and you'll do it every day, and you'll make that a habit, it will drastically change your life over time. You will be blown away at how much different it is. And as you get that habit in place, there are things like journaling, where you can write in a journal reflecting on what you're learning from reading. You can talk about mindset things. There's all kinds of things that you can do. There's goals. You can write your goals down every single day, a crazy powerful skill set that we'll talk about in a second. When you have goals, there's also visualization. And then the final one here that I'm going to list, this is what I've learned, like really successful people, these are some of the most important things they do. But number 5, so simple, but so crazy profound. You get up and you just think about 3 things you're grateful for every single day. I learned that from Tony Robbins. He gets up and he does that. And I'll tell you what, here's the 2 responses that I get from people when I say, get up every morning and get a growth plan. One is people say that they don't have time. And what I usually say is, I don't believe that that's true for most people. If I follow most people around and I see what they're doing on social media, how they're watching TV, how they're spending their time, most people are wasting probably 3 hours minimum every single day. And so I challenge you, don't allow yourself to have that excuse. Make time. The investment you make in yourself is the single most important thing that you can do. The second thing people tell me when they look at this sheet is they say, well, what difference does 5 minutes make? And I'll tell you what difference 5 minutes make, because I came prepared for that argument today. And what it is this: 5 minutes, I hope this will blow you away. I get excited about this kind of stuff. But 5 minutes every single day over the course of the year, 1,825 minutes, 30.4 hours. If you just sit and write down 3 things you're grateful for, and that time investment is significant, but you have to understand, when you teach your brain, instead of focusing on fear and insecurities, if you just teach it to just look for gratitude, there's a drastic shift in that. 30.4 hours of that. If you were to do 10 minutes on things like goals and journaling, 3,650 minutes, 60.8 hours, 1.5 40-hour work weeks. That's what we're talking about here. And reading, if you adopt this skill set, 30 minutes a day, Most people start at 15. They love it so much when they're consistent that they up it to 30 or they go to an hour. But 30 minutes a day equals 10,950 minutes, 182 hours, 4.5 40-hour work weeks. This is why the most successful people on the planet are where they are. This is 1 hour. This is a growth plan. And what I would tell you is to start with one single habit. Start with reading. And as you get 2 weeks in or you get a week in and you feel good, then you can add something else. And I call that stacking. But over the next 6 months, if you stack these 6 habits, I think you will be thrilled at how different your life is. It will be so different, and it'll blow you away. But here's the thing I know, it's hard. It's hard to get up 30 minutes early and to read when you don't feel like it. It's just not easy. But if you get through that, the reward is so awesome. And also, getting up early becomes a habit. I don't set an alarm and I get up every day by 5:30. It's not hard anymore. And so you have to earn that, though. And if you were to do all these, I once did a presentation where a high school kid said, hey, what if I did all of them? I was like, dude, I've never had anybody ask me that question. I was like, I want to follow up with that high school kid because I think they're going someplace. But it's 21,900 minutes, 365 hours, 9 40-hour work weeks. I can't miss anymore. I do this every single day, and I've added to this because I know how important it is. And for those of you who know Brian Tracy, he's a goal-setting expert, performance expert. He says that it's not just that investment. He said there's a 10-year compound interest. It's just like money when the market's good, that when you invest in yourself, you get better. You see things different. You develop your ability to stay calm. You start to believe you can take action. You step bigger, and it all compounds, and your life starts to turn into something different. So the number one thing, if I could teach you, just invest in you every single day. And watch over time what happens to your business as you get more bold, you get more confident, you know your values. That's a critical thing. So I got to make sure I'm staying on task here. I tend to talk sometimes and get excited about this stuff, and I'll go on like a lecture. So we're not going to do that. So number 2, and I love this too. I mean, if there are 2 things that I could teach people, I'm going to come right at it. 1 and number 2. I honestly did not understand the impact of this one before. Okay, I always knew that finding a value system was important because I think when you identify your values, that you come into your day and you're more intentional and you come across as more authentic. And when you're more authentic with your approach because you say I'm an integrity person or I'm a kind person and you're authentic to that, what's going to happen is you're going to build better relationships. We've all been around people who we really love it when people, what they say lines up with what they do. We love that. That's a real true leader. And that in itself is enough for you to sit down and say, who am I as a leader? Who am I as a person? And I tell you what, just that will so change your relationships with your husband, with your wife, with your kids, with your partner. I mean, I tell you what, and I'm just going to kind of get off track a little bit, and I hope you'll allow me to do that. But I was in college, and I was watching a video by the late Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits, Stephen Covey. And I was working on my dissertation at the time, and I thought, I need a break from this. This is too much. And I'm watching this video, and he's talking about the funeral exercise. And what he says, and this will be something that will be in the growth challenge that I'll tell you about, but he says that he said, I want you to close your eyes. And he said, I want you to imagine that you're at your own funeral. And I want you to picture the 5 most important people in your life walking up to the front and saying something about you. But here's the kicker. You need to be honest. Not what you want them to say. What would they say today based on your actions? And I did that exercise, and I said, oh, shit. Like, I immediately went back and go, oh, no. Like, excuse my language, but I said, that's not good. Because I knew that if that were to happen right now, I knew my wife would probably, if she was being honest, say, he's not really that patient sometimes. I was a college wrestler. I was taught to go out and you try to win, and I wasn't always patient. And I thought, I don't want that. I don't want my wife to say I'm not patient and that I don't care about her. And so I took that. I didn't dwell on that. I said, how do I want that to be different? And I got to work every single day doing that exact thing. And the quality of our relationship right now is better than it's ever been. I do the same thing with my kids. I say, what would I want my kids to say about me someday? What do I want when they're 20 years old and they're in college and they start to understand what will they say about me? And at first you're like, gosh, they'll say, again, not patient. It doesn't take time for me all the time. And I make sure that I change that. And I encourage you to do the same. Take your key roles, even in your business, and say, who do you want to be? And find a set of values that you can go after and you can do every single day. And that in itself is very, very important. But what I've learned is there's a second part to this. And it's incredible, right? What I've learned is value systems are also all about performance. Meaning right now, the reason why you may not be reaching the next level is you have the wrong values in place. And you say, what do you mean? I don't even know what my values are. But you have them. You've developed them over time. I guarantee you have them. As you think about it, you go, why am I hesitating right now? And you start to realize, well, oh yeah, I'm a perfectionist. I'm trying to be perfect. And that's one of the main examples. In fact, in our country, people will go, I'm a perfectionist. And they'll be like, that's a good thing. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. If you're a perfectionist and you won't take action, that is not a good thing. And I've done the same exact thing. I want things to be perfect sometimes. And when I want to be perfect, I don't move. I don't do anything because there's too much stress in trying to be perfect. But when I change that and I say instead, I'm a growth person. I'm a growth person, not a perfectionist. I just want to get better today. It drastically changes things. So I'm going to give you an example of athlete 1 and athlete 2, just because I have a great example here. Athlete 1 was a kid that I worked with this past season, and he was a top 5 ranked NCAA Division I wrestler. And I quickly realized that when I worked with him that his values were not where they needed to be. He valued perfection. He didn't want to go on the mat unless he was perfect. He wanted to look good. He was worried about what his socks looked like, what his hair looked like. I mean, these things that, they're not going to help you. And he valued accolades, praise, and attention. All these things that really, a lot of them you can't control. And it creates a lot of anxiety around performance. And so I'm going to stop there, okay? So there's athlete number 1. Athlete number 2, this is the guy that I had a chance to visit with who he valued growth. He didn't care if he was perfect. He just wanted to get better every single day. He was grateful for the opportunity to compete. Did not care if he looked good, just grateful for the chance to go in to perform to his potential. He loved the process. He wanted to earn his growth, his jumps, his outcomes every day, and he wanted to wrestle and live to potential. Athlete number 1 did not even make it through a season. He dropped out. He quit. Why? Because he was valuing the wrong things. And it created so much stress and just wrong things for him that it just didn't work. He didn't want to do it anymore. Athlete 2, the number 1 wrestler, one of the best athletes in the world right now, his name's Kyle Snyder. And if you were to look at that, you'd go, that's not the values of somebody who's that good. And I say, yes, it is. And this is very similar when you study successful people. And the difference between that is they're focused on things they can control, get better at every single day. So what I would tell you is pay attention. If you pick the right values, if you go in and say growth or giving, those are 2 amazing values, by the way. If you do growth and giving, it will change your life. It would change your life. When I go into my days and I'm hesitant about writing a new book, all I have to do is say, just grow and give. Same with my talks. I used to get really nervous for talks, and then I would say, Coyte, grow and give. And I'll tell you what, it would lighten the pressure. So you have to pay attention. Here are the silent killers. And none of you out there are going to go, these are my values. Like, you're not excited about it. But when you realize that you're stuck and you actually say, yeah, I actually do value playing it safe. I don't want to avoid failure. And I do want to be comfortable. These are not the type of values that will get you a really extraordinary life. The cool thing is you can shift values to growth and things that are fairly simple but crazy profound that will drastically change things. So for you to change them, you just have to be aware going, yeah, I really am avoiding failure. And you have to change the way you see it. Failure is not a bad thing. Not if you go to your best of your ability. It's not. The key to high-level success, sit down and create a value system that allows you to earn the type of life that you want, and then get up every single day, see those values, strive to live them. And I can talk to you about that more at the end. I love talking about values, but I need to move to the next slide. And the next one is this. Give your brain something productive to focus on. And this has to do with 2 pieces. Rather than being sitting back and worrying about everything else, first, go and grow every single day. And then get a value system that you focus on. You see what I'm doing? I'm hopefully teaching you to squeeze out negative thoughts. Don't give it any room. And do it by filling it with these amazing things that make your life so much better. And a part of that is going to be this, by doing 2 things, okay? And this is further along. So if all you did is number 1 or 2, great. But when the time comes when you want to set goals, it's an important thing. And here's the thing, though. You can't set a goal. It can't be a stress thing. You have to set a goal and go, man, this would be amazing. I'm excited to pursue this. When your values are right, you say growth, get better. Then you can come at goals from a different place. But you might say, hey, I want to become a top sales producer in my company. I want to become an extraordinary mom. I want to write a book. I don't know what that is. But when you write that thing down, what I encourage you to do is to see that every single day. And if you get nervous and go, gosh, that's too big, just tell that part of your brain to shut up and just let go and just say, this is what I want. Okay, this is what I want. Get your brain to the point where it goes to the subconscious part and you can just pursue it the right way. But here's a second part that I encourage you to do is when you know your goals, I talk to people now about emotional states. And what I say is think about the type of emotional states you need to be in to live those things. If I want to be a best-selling author, I can't run around being lazy. I can't run around, not being motivated. I can't be those things. And so if you want to be a top sales producer, you need to be focused. You need to be motivated. You need to be energetic. I don't know. You create your own things. But when you realize that, don't wait. Try to strive to live in those states every single day, and it's totally possible. My wife would tell you when we first met each other, I was not the calmest. I just wasn't calm all the time. I'm still not. But I strive to be better at that every single day because I know that that's what it takes. And when what you can do, the cool thing about this is once you know these states, you can double back and make these your values. And when you're striving to live that way every single day, now again, between values and getting yourself in the right emotional states, you can get back to these goals and you can close the gap. And then the last thing I wanted to say is this is not one of the top 3, but if you truly, truly want to get to the point where you're achieving some really cool things and you love what your life is about, you got to learn to see things differently. You cannot go into your day and try to be like everybody else. And let me give you some examples. Whenever I talk to people, and I see this in coaching, and I'm coaching them, and somebody comes in and they go, oh man, uncertainty. Oh, it's a bad thing. I hate uncertainty. Man, it's what is it? They say, oh, it's scary. Uncertainty is scary. But you know what? The most effective people on the planet do not think uncertainty is scary. What they've learned to do is see it as something that's a good thing. It's the opportunity to close the gap. You see, when you come upon these things that are stopping you, you need to remind yourself, no. I want a life that's different, not scary, opportunity. Okay, there's an opportunity to grow here. You see where it's connecting to your values and everything kind of comes together? No's. People will say, man, no's are frustrating. No's suck. I mean, and I'll be honest, I've said that before. No's suck. I don't like it. I've still got examples of no's that I don't like. But again, successful people, you'll hear this, right? Like Brian Tracy talks about how he would teach himself to love no's. Like he would get excited going around selling. Like I'm not there yet, but some people do that. And then failure, people will say failure is disappointing. And listen, it's hard to get around that, but successful people don't see it as that. What they do is they change the entire thing. And here's where values come back into play. That if you focus on growth every single day, every single one of those things can become an opportunity. Uncertainty, opportunity to grow. No's, opportunity to grow because I can look at it and see why I had a no. I can get better. I can get stronger. Failure. The greatest failures in my life have been the points that have changed my life. Honestly. Same with giving. If you're nervous about selling, a lot of times you're nervous because you're worried about what it means for you. If you will turn it around and instead just give to people, just focus on giving, changing their life, building your team because you want people to have an amazing life, it changes everything. And if you can focus on gratitude, being grateful for all these things because they're making you better, everything changes. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today is just some of these, they're not crazy simple, but they're things we need to be changing every single day. So what I wanted to do maybe before I jump and tell you a little bit about an opportunity is say, are there any questions at this point? Or Brandon, did you see any questions from anybody?
If anybody wants to type them in the chat or if they want to unmute themselves and ask Coyte any questions.
And I can jump to this too if we're waiting on typing or anything like that. So what I want to do is we'll kind of wait and see if anybody asks any questions. But the next thing I wanted to tell.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I can't see. I need to pull up there's so many people. I don't know who that is, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to jump forward so we don't want to have like, I used to teach and I would go in on the first day at North Carolina and I just kind of sit there. The students would kind of sit there and it was really crazy awkward. And I don't want that to be the case right now. So I'll move forward. And as you can tell, I've got a weird sense of humor. Some of you are just kind of staring like.
Go ahead. You're good. Go ahead.
something. I just like to have fun. So here's the last thing I would tell you is just in terms of first, I'm going to jump through this. We don't have time for this. This would have been really cool, but I don't have time for it. I want to tell you about an opportunity, and this is one of the main ways that Brandy and I had worked together, is that about a couple of years ago, I created what was called the Growth Challenge. And essentially what it was is I wrote my first book, Impressions, which is all about values, relationships, some of those key things that we talked about. And I wanted to work with people more closely. And what I decided to do was to create a 28-day growth challenge. And essentially what it was established around these same habits. And we would get people into these things from some of these teams. I would work them like schools. I did sport teams, a wide range. I think there were like 2,000 different people that signed up for it. And essentially what we did is we'd get these groups together. And if it was a team like yours, we'd have a Facebook group and we would post every single day. What people would get is, first thing I would tell you going into a week, because I was saying, here's a habit we're going to work on. We're going to get up every single day, and hopefully 30 minutes early, and we're just going to read. And we would read my book, Impressions. And then the second thing I would do Monday through Friday is I would post a video. And every week would have a theme. So the first one was like passion and vision, where we'd sit down and we'd start to get back to saying, what are you passionate about? What do you want in terms of your goals and stuff like that? And you'd have a different kind of video where you'd have a simple activity to do every single day. And you have those 5 days. And then we go into week 2, and that would be all about gratitude. And gratitude week was awesome. We do these gratitude letters. We do random acts of kindness. Really, really cool. And so we'd have this group that would go through, and week 3 was value system. And we'd implement value systems. Week 4, jumping out of your comfort zone. And the people who went through it and got through it, I'm not going to lie to you, not everybody got through it. It's like anything. It's like what you're dealing with your business. Not everybody's growing. But man, I'll tell you what, the people who got through it, and they went through this in 28 days, they established these amazing habits. I'm still in touch with, in fact, I'm good friends with some of the people who really came through it. And it's amazing to see what they've accomplished. And so what we talked about, the leaders of your team was offering this. For those of you who would be interested, I'm not sitting here, not looking for money or anything. In fact, what I originally told them is you need to buy the book, but I'm sitting here now. I might even throw up a little link that says you can just go sign up and get the electronic copy after this. But essentially what it is just working with people, trying to get you change in your life, trying to get you to a point where you're really enjoying things. And so we had talked about that. And what I want to do real quick is I'm going to pop it up on actually, I don't need to. What I'll do in a second is I'll pop the link off to the side. And what I'm going to say is, for those of you who are interested in taking, kind of getting involved with this, is we got to completely iron out the exact starting date. I'll do that with your leaders of your team. But if I post this and you can actually start with the electronic version, it honestly could be as early as next Monday, but maybe we'll just shoot for the 25th. But we would start that. We'd get a page up where everybody could jump into that on Facebook. And we would jump into this thing and, give you a shot to kind of go out and kind of do some neat things. So a free training opportunity. And that's just what I have to offer. So Brandy, did you want to add anything to that?
Brandy.
Okay, can you tell everybody, are you going to leave a place where everybody can get your book? For the growth? Okay,
yeah,
awesome. I think Amazon, right? But I'm not sure.
Actually, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pop a little link up, and you can get it on Amazon. But if you go to the link that I'm about to post, it will automatically give you access.
Okay, awesome.
To the Growth Challenge page. It will give you an electronic copy of this. So I'm maybe self-sabotaging my own sales stuff, but that's okay. But essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it right up here. If you go sign up. We do it in the next day, then what I'll do is I'll let all of you who are in that get that for free. And then what we'll do is we'll follow up with the exact details on the start date so we can all be on one page together. So
good. I think that's a good idea. Maybe Brandy, you can, between you and Coyte, you guys can make a Facebook group, and then we'll figure out when to start, and then we'll invite everybody. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, and that's the page there. And the cool thing about this is you can go and you can look at all the sections and see what it's all about, and you can get a feel for it before we get started. I will say this, you can totally start it on your own, but there's something really pretty cool about doing it as a group and the energy of a group. And I can answer questions. I may throw in some new different videos and stuff like that in terms of training to make it a little bit more effective. But I think it'd be cool to start at one time. But by all means, go ahead and sign up and check it out.
Awesome. Sounds really good. Everything you said was really awesome. I hope it sounds like everybody is really happy that they need this kind of stuff, and everyone seems pretty excited about the challenge. Does anyone else have any more questions before we end the meeting?
There are some here I see. Let me answer a couple of them.
Some in there? Let me scroll.
Yeah, I'll grab one of these. Somebody said here, when you have devastating things happen in your life, how does one learn to bounce back faster and stay in stuck mode? There are different levels of devastating things, right? And I've never lost a kid. I didn't lose my partner or anything like that. So I've never had that happen. But I have had some things happen that are pretty frustrating. In fact, the TED Talk I just gave recently had to do with the situation where I didn't get tenured at the University of North Carolina. And that was pretty disappointing. I mean, I poured into that. I mean, I worked my butt off every single day for 6 years to do what they wanted me to do. And essentially when you don't get tenured, it means you've lost your job. And they actually offered me another job, but I went to my wife and I said, I don't want to do that. But I remember when that happened to me. At first I was like confused, and then I was frustrated and angry. And then I got to a point, I didn't realize this, but I was watching something from Brene Brown, and I realized that I was embarrassed too. I had a little bit of shame involved in that. But you know what I did to get through it for me is I stayed consistent with getting up and reading every single day. I pointed myself towards the positive every single day. And I'd be lying if I said I got up and I was running around and I was happy. But I committed to that. I committed to doing something to get myself there. And I tell you what, another thing that helps me when I have hard things happening is what I try to do. And this isn't like I don't try not to make this a weird thing, but I tell people perspective is always key, right? That if you have the right perspective, you can learn to see things entirely differently. Like, meaning when I got fired, I read a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And Viktor Frankl was a guy who was a concentration camp survivor. His entire family got killed in concentration camps. Like it was his wife, his brother, his mom, all of them, like brutally murdered in a camp. And he's in the middle of this camp. And you would think like he would be frustrated, he would lash out, he would try to kill somebody. He focused on getting out because he believed what he could do is he could teach people that you can always choose your response in a situation. And when I read that perspective made me realize, like, listen, I can do something about this. And so perspective helps as well. But I think just if you invest in yourself and you continue to have faith, I think a lot of times you can always pull through things. But here's the thing I've learned as well, and I don't know if you're there yet, but I would say this. The times that I look back on and I consider like the worst moments, like failures, have ended up being the greatest things that have ever happened to me. I didn't become a national champ in college, and some of you are like, big deal, but I cared about that. It hurt me when I didn't do that. Well, that actually led me to go out and get my PhD and be on the route where I'm at now, which is much better than me being wrestling. In college, same time, I had my girlfriend at the time who I thought I loved, but she hooked up with my best friend from high school. And it, like, some of you are like, why would you tell people this? I'm like, I don't know. But listen, but the thing was, I at the time, it stunk. Like, I was like moping around, and my brother's like, Coyte, like, you got to get up and do something. And so I started to get up. I started to, invest in myself. 6 months later, I met my wife. And it's just, every day I'm thankful that she went and hooked up with my best friend, because I don't meet my wife if that doesn't happen. I get denied tenure, and now what I'm doing is amazing. Like, I wasn't meant to be a college professor. Like, I'm meant to be doing what I'm doing. So understand that a lot of times the things you're in the middle of are these amazing opportunities to drastically change your life if you see them the right way. And if you see them the right way, you'll be blown away. You'll go, gosh, thank goodness that happened to me. But here's what happens to most people. In most situations, there's a gift, but most people spend so much time frustrated, angry, and shame and these negative emotions that they never give themselves the opportunity to actually move over and see this as being a good thing. So I don't know exactly what you're going through, but in most instances, my experience is that if you'll move forward and kind of believe that there's something else there, if you remind yourself, find the gift. That's what I did. Find the gift, I tell myself. And the sooner that I get in that mode and I find it, things change. So I would say that. So I think there's some others, but I don't know how much we have time-wise.
I'm just scrolling up real quick to see if there's maybe one more.
And somebody said something about pushing lately hard, mindset and pregnancy. That, that's the part where it's harder for me. I've never been pregnant. So I've heard that there definitely are some emotions that come with that. But I do know this. I mean, and a lot of people know this, things like exercise, things like reading, they absolutely can change your state. So I would say do as much as you can to change that. A lot of times we fall into patterns of thinking like we have to be certain things. Like, oh yeah, we have to, like people tell me this all the time. They're like, I'm not a morning person. I'm just grumpy in the morning. Like, you're going to get mad at me, some of you, for saying this, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that some people are just not morning people. Like, you can learn to be a morning person. Like when I first started waking up, I wasn't exactly excited about it, but I kept doing it. And it's been the biggest, like, awesome thing that I've done in my life. So I would say don't fall into what normal people's perceptions are. Oh, failure has to be a bad thing. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. You can go all in, fail, find the lesson, and get better very, very quickly. You don't have to settle for average and do things the way everybody else does. You can do it entirely differently. So I would say focus on habits that allow you to get to that point. This is cool. You get a lot of comments. You guys get buck wild a little bit.
Chatty bunch, aren't we?
I like that. Yeah. Cool. So anything else I can help anybody with?
Somebody said, Nicole said, do you focus on people with business or in general in improving their life?
To be honest, first off, I said I do both. But the concepts that I teach, I don't think they're separate. I think that everything is connected. I think if you think you're going to build a great business and there's frustration at home, then that frustration is going to carry over to your business. If things are great at home and things are terrible in your business and you're bringing it home, it's not. And what I've learned is that you can come up with a set of values that works in every environment. And a lot of people will say, oh no, it has to be different at work and at home. No, it doesn't. Like I'm a giving person. I'm a giving person when I'm with my wife, with my kids, when I'm working with people. I'm a growth person in all environments. I try to show love and care for wherever I'm at. I mean, those are things that I try to be all the time. I'm trying to be passionate in everything that I do. My wife gets annoyed with that, but that's who she married. But I would say I'm not even answering your question. I work with both. But when I work with people, what I've learned is this. People come to me for business, and we have to shake out a lot of stuff personally to get where we need to be. And a lot of the times what that is when people are stuck in business and they have limiting beliefs, it's because of personal life. And we have to go back and kind of figure out why that's happening. So I think it's both. I would never want to teach somebody to run a business and then be rotten at home. I want them to be amazing at home, amazing in their business.
Right.
Yeah, no. So I do both. So that's what you get. You asked me a question and I talked for 5 minutes.
That's okay. You're fine.
Hopefully valuable stuff,
That's why I relate to you. We're the same that way. Yeah. But before we go real quick, does anybody have anything else real quick that you wanted to ask that maybe didn't get answered? If I missed it, or maybe we didn't see it in the chat there because we were going crazy there for a few minutes.
I just really appreciate you so much coming on. I know you're a busy guy and took time out of your day to do this for us. So thank you so very much. I know that everybody's really excited.
I have one question, I think. Go ahead. I'm waiting and watching. Good. Let me find you here. There you are. Okay, go ahead.
Hi there. My question is, I was raised, and I don't know, everybody's raised with certain values. When you're growing up, it's like the please, thank you, and respecting your elders and those kinds of things. So, and then after raising kids, and now my kids are gone, it's like I feel like I have to recreate them, like personally. And I don't think like the core value has left, but I guess I'm just trying to figure out that piece right now, and I'm not sure I completely have linked it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think you definitely there's certain times where your values shift. There's no question about that, and there may be a time for evaluating. But I think so. I'd say that's possible too. But let me say this: my values probably shift every year or so. To be honest, I mean, and part of the reason that happens is when I'm investing and I'm growing, things change. But yeah, I think what happens, especially with moms and dads, are sometimes this way too. But moms pour into their kids, like dads do too. But my wife, oh my gosh, like I can imagine when our kids leave, like we're going to have to redirect her focus and get her, kind of more things to focus on. But I think definitely you can sit down and go through them. And what you may find is that there's certain values that you do that you've given up from being a mom, and it can be a time to have those things resurface. So I think definitely sit down and go through this process. And maybe what it is you do have some of your same values, whether they're caring and stuff, but maybe what it is some of the goals shift, some of the things that you're working on shift a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think absolutely that'd be something to think about.
Yeah. Cause you have more time, right? When your kids are gone, and
yeah,
it's like, okay, it's like you want to kind of recreate, you stay with the good core values that you were raised with, but
yeah,
you actually recreate something bigger.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is this: if you grew up in a good family, you're blessed, right? When you grew up in a family where they gave you the right values, then you're good. You keep those values, but you don't. If you grew up in a household where the values weren't right, you don't have to keep those values.
Yeah, right.
You don't have to. You at any time, like I can change my values tomorrow if I want to. And by changing my values, I can change the way that I operate. But I keep some of the values I learned from my parents because they were amazing. That's the core of even who I am now. But there are things I do different than my parents, no question about it. And, different values. But another thing I would say is for those of you who have kids and they're in the household, I did this recently with my kids. Like I went through and I did a values exercise and I created like a list of these values and it was awesome. My little kid was like, I want go for it on the list. I'm like, let's put it on the list. My little girl who's 4, she wanted be awesome on the list. I'm like, let's put be awesome on the list. Like it was really neat to go through that exercise with your kids as well and have a family culture. And so that's pretty rewarding as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the last thing I'll say about that is it's pretty cool. Like kids are nuts, but then all of a sudden when your little 4-year-old's talking about like, oh yeah, I'm grateful for this. I'm like, yes. Like,
yeah, you feel like you did it right. you're like score points. I have my 14-year-old telling me when I don't want to do something, I have him telling me, eat the frog, eat the ugly frog. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so awesome. I taught him something good.
Yeah.
So
they're listening. They're listening.
So guys, what we're going to do then is I'm going to go ahead and end the recording and give you guys your Wednesday night back because we're going over 9 o'clock now. But what I'm going to do is have Brandy just post, get a group going with Coyte, and then we will get a start date and we'll get everybody out that information so that if you guys want to do the growth challenge, thank you so much, Coyte, for talking to us and offering that book for free, which is super awesome. I know I'm going to go download it, so you guys should too. And we'll post that link too in the group. So I will see you guys soon. Thank you guys all for joining us. And don't forget, next week we have another special guest. And look for this recording if anybody hasn't seen it in the group. So see you guys later. Bye.
Thank you.
See ya.